start by beginning with welcome to our YouTube audience who are joining us from YouTube today. And again, as noted earlier in the service, you can find all the recordings on our Caron Chapel YouTube channel, where you can see this and any future and past recordings. Today's message is on the subject of hope. Now, hope can come in many forms, and one of them includes white knuckling, the white knuckling type of hope, where you cross your fingers and exclaim something that is more of a wish. Now, there's a joke that I've said before, but I'm going to say it again. I know those who have heard my previous YouTube videos have heard this one before. It's like, how do you know if someone runs a marathon?
Tell you.
Don't worry, they'll tell you. Exactly. So I'm going to start by saying most folk here know that I've run several marathons, and I'm a distance runner, and I've run several marathons, some 50 miles, 50Ks, and even 100K. So there you go, that's just proving the joke is correct, am I right? I happened to find out the other day that the Berlin Marathon lottery was open. So for those of us who aren't fast runners, we have to enter the lottery for some of these major races, and then we see if our name gets picked and we get to run that race. So on Friday night, I entered the Berlin Marathon lottery, which is one of the Abbott's 6 majors, world majors. And this would be number 4 for me if I get into it. So you know that I was doing that whole fingers crossed, I'll get into this, I hope I get into this, I hope I get picked for this. So that's the type of hope that I'm talking about, which in that sentiment seems to be more of a kind of superstitious type of hope. I hope I get this, I hope I get into this. It's more superstition, can't even speak right now, it's more superstitious, it's that feeling of that white knuckling sentiment that's attached to it, the fingers crossed type of sentiment, the knock on wood type of superstitious sort of beliefs that we hold when we hope in that kind of way, which kind of makes these exclamations of hope more like a wish. But another form of hope is that of a form of trust, a recognition that even in times of struggle, of fear, of poverty, of all these other things that may cause us to question our sense of stability, we can hold on to something that can give us the strength to get through our struggles with whatever we may be experiencing. An adapted reading from the Greek poem Theogony about the creation of Pandora reads, "Once upon a time, thousands of years ago, the most powerful Greek god, Zeus, created a woman named Pandora. She was the first woman on earth according to Greek mythology. The gods gave her many traits, including beauty, curiosity, charm, and cleverness, hence her name Pandora, which means all gifted. Before he left Pandora on earth, Zeus handed her a beautiful box, saying, 'This is my own special gift to you, however, do not open it.' As Zeus anticipated, Pandora's curiosity got the better of her, and she opened the box, ending earthly paradise, because from the small chest flew troubles and woes, sorrow, disease, vice, violence, greed, madness, old age, and death, to plague humankind forever. However, Zeus did not realize that hope had been secretly added to the box. When Pandora opened the box and released the troubles and woes into the world, she also released the hope that was there to help people survive. Pandora was someone who ultimately had everything going for her, opportunities and gifts. She was intelligent, charming, beautiful, and curious. Curiosity can actually be a really good trait when we relate it to discovering or rediscovering a sense of wonder or joy or learning more about ourselves or others in a non-judgmental way. However, curiosity can also have a less than positive side that can get a person into trouble, and in Pandora's naivety, she did something that she was asked not to do, which was to open the beautiful box that she had been given. Unfortunately, what was inside that beautiful box was a whole lot of trouble. The world apparently had been a place of magic, good health, full of life, peace, and generosity. The experiences of death, greed, and corruption, amongst other things, were introduced once that box was open. Pandora was overwhelmed of the horrors that she had been duped into releasing into the world. Yes, she opened the box, but cunning Zeus was aware with her gift of curiosity, she wouldn't be able to simply look at her pretty box, but she was going to open it. That was his plan all along. However, as she was getting ready to close that box, she was encouraged to keep the box open, and she's overwhelmed and saying, why? This is a devastating effect that I've had. I can't release any more things like this onto this world. She was encouraged to keep that box open and was told that the last of the gifts was necessary. And as she left that box open, hope, like a small dragonfly, flew out of that box. It was a strong reminder that even with all of the negatives that we may experience in life, so long as we have hope, we have a chance to move through those negative experiences. Now, when we look at that box that Pandora was given, it's a lot like life, all wrapped up in quite a gift. Yet it's filled with many experiences, and some will be great, and others not so much. But it will be filled with things that could take our breath away, as well as the struggles, hurt, trauma, and pain that we all experience. All wrapped up with a golden rope tied in a bow to remind us that life is a gift. Similarly, Forrest Gump would quote his mother saying, life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Well, that was all sitting in there inside Pandora's box as well, not chocolates though. It might have been a little more palatable if it was, you know. So, as we move through life, things happen for us, things happen to us, whether accidental or on purpose, whether they cause harm or bring joy, whether we are the person who creates that harm or joy or someone else's. Things happen. Whatever we experience in life, the truth remains that the need for hope is something that can sustain us when times get tough. And conversely, there are things that try to take that hope away from us, closing that lid on whatever box or experience we've opened or had open for us before that hope gets released. Trauma, for example, is one of many things that can take away that sense of safety, and over time can strip us of that feeling of hope. Along with that, when alcohol or substances are used as a way to try and numb out those feelings or trauma, or social anxiety or depression, or other things, then it seems that that lid is really trying to close. Now, we might feel like substances or alcohol are helping us to begin with. But then after a while, it seems that we're opening Pandora's box. And before we know it, that which we thought was helping us turns into something that's trying to crush us and destroy us. Starting with releasing many of the negative traits that have been hidden inside of us, maybe lying or hiding things or keeping secrets. But before you know it, you may not even begin to recognize yourself anymore. And especially when engaging in behaviors or thought patterns that you know you wouldn't choose to do if you were sober. It can lead to feelings of shame and isolation, and in turn that isolation reinforces a sense of shame, and the hiding and secret keeping, which also reinforces more of that sense of shame. This vicious circle starts happening. And the only way to get out of such a circle is by introducing hope. A trust that something can be different. But this will require vulnerability and honesty. Things that may have been difficult as a result of the shame that tries to pull a person away from who they really are. One example of a story of this happening to someone who's almost 100 years old now. Bill Wilson, we all know his name. Bill Wilson was a man who would do great in his job when he was sober. But once he picked up drinking again, he would inevitably lose his job, causing him and his wife Lois to have to move different locations to find work, find a new place to live, start getting money together again, and he kept falling into this cycle. He was frequently in hospital for his drinking, and one of his hospitalizations was when his wife Lois experienced a miscarriage that almost killed her, and he lived with shame and regret for not having been able to be there for her. He had regrets and shame, and this pattern would continue until a former drinking buddy, Eddie Thatcher, explained he was sober through a program he found and a belief in an external source of motivation that he was willing to hold himself accountable to. This concept, which he referred to as himself, he referred to his concept of higher power as God, was not necessarily something from a religious background, or it could be, but it was a personal belief. Through forming a relationship with his concept of God, his concept of spiritual guidance, Abby began to experience his own signs, which led to finding joy, wonder, and this sense of hope once more, through the signs that were shown to him, through the connections that he made back with himself, to others, and with this source of guidance. Now, with time, Abby coached Bill, and Bill was able to find sobriety. How? Because he saw a good friend and a former drinking buddy who had gone before him and done this sobriety thing before him. That gave him both a connection and a sense of hope. If Abby could do this, then maybe Bill could also do this. Fast forward to Bill being successful again, and his company sending him to Ohio on business. Only he knew no one over there, and he was going to be there a long time. Of course, the social areas of the hotel would be the bar, but that was off limits to him, at least if he wanted to stay sober. So with his newly found sobriety and hope that he did want to protect, he started calling local churches with hopes that he could find, as he put it, another alcoholic to talk to. The man he was eventually connected to was Dr. Bob Smith. Bob admitted that he was going to take a fake phone call from his hospital by his wife, telling him that the hospital needed him to go in, just so that he could get this crazy man out of here within 15 minutes, because he didn't want to listen to another person that would just tell him what to do. Just like Bill before him and Eddie before Bill, Bob also had this shame related to his drinking. That led him to isolating, and others did judge him, or nag him, or tell him what to do, but a lot of those people still enabled him, just like his wife that was going to give him the fake phone call and say, "Oh, it's your hospital, wink, wink." It wasn't his hospital. It was one of those things that you do when you're on a date, and you're like, "I want to get out of here, so I'll get my best friend to call me in 15 minutes, sort of thing. It was one of those situations. So he suspected that Bill was another one of these people that was just going to tell him what to do. Instead, however, Bill told Bob what he had done and how his drinking had impacted his own life. Now this intrigued Bob, who recognized, wow, this guy is like me. And Bob didn't feel so isolated anymore. Which meant that when his wife came in with the fake phone call, he said to her, "Oh, it's okay, I like this guy, you don't have to lie to me." So he did fess up to that. So here's the thing about Bob's story. Although Bob still had a few more runs left in him, he soon found out that the non-judgment and camaraderie that he received from his new friend Bill helped give him hope, as well as learn from some of the mistakes that he had made. And the connection he found was what helped save both him and Bill from the isolation that Bob was already in, and the isolation that Bill could have slipped back into. From there, just as the program Bill had been attending in New York, they visited men in hospitals, because it was mostly men at that point that would end up in the hospitals, because they were the ones who were drinking more in public, whereas women, even if they did have alcohol use disorder, tended to drink more at home. Again, another level of shame and isolation. So Bill and Bob would go to the hospitals and talk to the men there after a night of the men's heavy drinking that ended them up in the hospital. And this led to so many people who had previously fallen into the feelings of hopelessness, isolation, and shame to begin to feel a sense of hope, maybe for the first time, that if they could get sober, these two men here could get sober, maybe they could as well. After all, their stories weren't so different. So as we look at this, hope comes from that feeling of connection, of finding that others have similar stories. So that if a person that we know has a similar story to us, we can recognize that we don't feel so alone. And when a person no longer feels so alone, that sense of shame begins to dissipate and hope can begin to grow. Out of the chaos of Pandora's box flies hope. There's a song by the band 10th Avenue North with lyrics that include, "Afraid to let your secrets out. Everything that you hide can come crashing through the door now. But too scared to face all your fear. So you hide, but you find that the shame won't disappear. So let it fall down. There's freedom waiting in the sound. When you let your walls fall to the ground, we're here now. This is where the healing begins. This is where the healing starts. When you come to where you're broken within, the light meets the dark. A hope that is bound with trust allows a person to start shedding those walls that they have been trapped inside for far too long. The shame that has held a person prisoner for so long can begin to fall to the ground. And even in the midst of struggles and crises, because we are willing to become vulnerable and allow others not so much to help us by doing things for us, but to help us by us listening to their stories and recognizing the similarities that we might have. It's the similarities, not the differences, that bind us together. This is also true for family members. As family members, we may have spent endless days or nights worried about who or what we may come home to, worried about the unknown phone call that might pop up on our caller ID, or maybe we've done some covering up, minimizing, or other things in our own experiences with our loved ones. An acronym for shame is secretly hiding all my emotions. Secretly hiding all my emotions. Regardless of whether the person we are with is the substance or alcohol use disorder, or we are that person, we've done a good job of secretly hiding all of our emotions. The emotions that we feel about what's going on, whether that's confusion, anger, pain, distress, fear, guilt, or other feelings. And the walls got built up around those as we tried to do our best to look good on the outside. But as we heard, the healing begins when we recognize we're not alone in whatever we're experiencing. Once we hear our story from someone else's experience and we recognize that we're not alone in whatever we've been going through, we can let those walls fall to the ground and let that healing begin. So the first step to finding hope is to allow ourselves to work on connecting with the people who have had similar experiences and are beginning to grow into the hope that they have found. Just as we stand on the shoulders of the people who have come before us, so they also stand on the shoulders of the people who came before them. So let's learn not to simply just cross our fingers and hope from an almost wish-based perspective, like I did with the Berlin Marathon lottery entry experience. But let's learn to find hope and meaning in connecting with people that we may want to learn from. No matter what brought you here today, whether it's a patient or family member, alumni, or simply someone visiting, I would like to encourage you to reach out to your community of support or to work on establishing such a community. Allow yourself to find hope, find the people that can help your hope grow, even in good times, so that the hope can help you carry on through those unknown or other critical times. Allow yourself to pluck up the courage to share your story, to share your experiences, to let your walls fall to the ground and let the healing begin, and let the hope fly free. Amen.